Okay, everyone, as we get closer and closer to Wrestle Kingdom 12, it's time for me to knock out my next two Wrestle Kingdom reviews. Those would be the 2009 and 2010 events, Wrestle Kingdom 3 and Wrestle Kingdom 4. So with that, let's just get started. More cross-promotional work in these two shows. In Wrestle Kingdoms 3, New Japan had working relationships with CMLL, TNA, Pro Wrestling 01, and Pro Wrestling Noah. So, a lot of different cross-promotional matches happening at this show. Wrestle Kingdom 3 is an interesting one. I distinctly remember this show getting rave reviews at the time it came out. Like, it was getting 9s and 10s and perfect scores from a lot of people, and the reviews were overall very positive. I even remember some people, it might have even been Truth Slayer, if I recall correctly, some people begging TNA to release the full show on DVD rather than just their matches. Having now watched the full show, I thought it was pretty good. I don't know if I'd give it a 9 or a 10. I thought it was a overall pretty damn good show and very enjoyable. But I don't know if I'd rank it up. To me, if I'm going to give a score, if I'm going to give a pay-per-view the score of like a 9 or a 10, that would make it like one of my favorite shows of all time. And I don't know if I'd go that high with this one, but it was really good and really enjoyable. Starting off things, again, one of the big interpromotional matches, we had a 6-man tag team match. Averno, Gato, and Jado taking on Prince Devitt, Finn Balor to you WWE fans, Taguchi, and Mexican star Mystico, who WWE fans may also remember as the first Sin Cara, who didn't do quite well in that role. But there was a time when Mystico was one of the highest regarded luchadors out there, and when WWE first picked him up, it was considered like a major pickup. I don't know what it was, but for some reason in WWE, he just didn't really work out. So, but this match was good. Again, so many different talents involved and made for a fun match to kick things off. Devitt and Mystico were kind of the stars of the whole thing, and their team got the win. So overall, just an enjoyable way to kick off the show. Next up was the Jushin Thunder Liger 20th anniversary match, as Liger teamed up with Takuma Sano to take on Koji Kanemoto and Wataru Inoue. Again, it's Jushin Thunder Liger, and I'm a bit of a mark for the guy, so whenever I watch him, I typically enjoy it. And it was interesting that his 20th anniversary match was just kind of like a filler match on the show, but it was enjoyable, and Liger's team got the win, which in this particular case was probably the right move, and overall just a solidly entertaining match. Next up, we had TNA's The Motor City Machine Guns taking on the team of No Limit. No Limit being made up of Tatsuya Naito, who is going to be main eventing Wrestle Kingdom 12, and Yujiro Takahashi, who is a member of the Bullet Club. Is actually, if I'm not mistaken, he was the first non-Gaijin to be in the Bullet Club. So, yeah, those two guys went on to have fairly successful singles runs following the breakup of No Limit, I would say. But yeah, Motor City Machine Guns and No Limit, I remember them wrestling each other quite a few times in TNA. Like, they would have matches. I remember, the biggest one I remember was at Lockdown 09. It was those two teams in LAX in a match for the junior heavyweight tag titles. Which doesn't really make sense because Hernandez is a heavyweight. Like, how could he be going for the IWGP junior heavyweight belts? But in any case, they typically worked really well together, and this was no exception. Just a really good junior heavyweight tag team match. Motor City Machine Guns got the win, won the titles, and gave TNA a little extra something, a little extra credibility in their, in their organization, that two other guys could go into another organization and, believably hold championships. And the Machine Guns were one of the best teams that TNA had at the time and would be for the entire time that they were there. But yeah, this was just a really good match, just really enjoyable, and pretty much at this point, No Limit and the Machine Guns had already worked with each other. I don't know if they'd had any matches in TNA yet, but the series of matches that they had together were pretty solid, and like I said, this was no exception. So no surprise here that this match was good. Next up, Tiger Mask versus Low Ki for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. Low Ki was going in as the champion. Tiger Mask ultimately got the win. This match was pretty much exactly what I expected it to be. It was two guys that are fairly similar in style. Low Ki's got a style that fits in very well with that the New Japan Junior Heavyweight division. And yeah, it's just a good, solid match, and pretty much exactly what I expected out of these two. Tiger Mask got the win, won the championship back for New Japan. Actually, I don't. Yeah, I think my memory's a little fuzzy here. I don't think Low Ki was with TNA at this point. I think he was with New Japan, which is, either way, match was good, so it doesn't really matter. Next up, an 8-man tag. Oh, this is a nice mix of talent. The main event Mafia, represented by Kevin Nash and Kurt Angle, with their partners Masahiro Chono and Riki Chozu, taking on GBH, a 4-man team made up of Giant Bernard, Carl Anderson, Takashi Iizuka, and Tomohiro Ishii. A handful of these guys are still around today, doing stuff. Carl Anderson in WWE, Tomohiro Ishii, one of the best guys in New Japan right now. And then you got Chono, who's a legend, Chozu, who's a legend, Nash and Angle, obviously legends. And I remember the main event Mafia. I remember that was a stable that the internet was not a big fan of at the time. But they were basically TNA's attempt at trying to recreate the NWO. Just have all the main event old guys like take over the show and be in charge and all that stuff. But yeah, so it's no surprise that they would send them over there and have them work with guys like Chono, who was a member of NWO Japan, if memory serves me right. So, yeah, it was a pretty basic 8-man tag, not really a whole lot to say, but there's so much, such a diverse group of talents here. Giant Bernard, who's Albert, and Lord Tensai, for you WWE fans out there. Such a diverse group of talents that it's made for a bit of a colorful experience, so I kind of enjoyed this. Next up was the Battle of the Legends. Yuji Nagata taking on Masato Tanaka for the World Heavyweight Championship. Not the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, but the, I believe, this was the title that was for, looking it up, 0-1. Yeah, so this was the 0-1 belt. Let me go back here. Our tablet's fun. Anyway, okay, so yeah, they were fighting for the 0-1 heavyweight title, and yeah, this was a very enjoyable match. I really liked this. Just, two older talents going out there and just having this good, hard-hitting match. Nagata was really something special, like, in his prime, and this was still, like, at this point, he was a little bit past his prime, but he was still, like, really good. And Tanaka, ECW fans probably remember him, especially for the matches that he had with Mike Awesome. But yeah, two really good talents going out there and having a really good match. I really enjoyed this. Not a whole lot else to say other than that. And Yuji Nagata got the win and retained the championship. So yeah. All right, next up is Battle of Big Men, Jun Akiyama versus Manabu Nakanishi. This might be the best match I've ever seen Nakanishi have. Nakanishi's a guy that to me Nakanishi is what people accuse Bad Luck Fale of being. He's just a big guy that lumbers around. I think Bad Luck Fale is way more capable than Nakanishi, but Nakanishi he's just a big guy that just kind of lumbers around the ring. But this match was about as good as I've ever seen out of Nakanishi, where it's just two big guys slugging it out and hitting suplexes, and made for an okay match. Not a classic, but considering I'm not that high on Nakanishi, it actually was better than I would have expected. So, points there. Akiyama got the win over Nakanishi. Next up we have, for the IWGP Tag Team Championships, Team 3D, the Dudley Boys, taking on the most violent players, Togi Makabe and Toru Yano, in a hardcore match. This one's interesting because I distinctly remember this match getting hated on when it first happened, and people were like, oh my god, that match was terrible. It was a basic hardcore match. I didn't see what the big deal was. Team 3D would win the IWGP Tag Team Championship, the first time that they would hold those belts, and adding to their ever-growing legacy of championship belts that they've won over the years. It was like they used tables, they used everything you'd pretty much, I think a cheese grater came in at one point, or maybe that was at 4, I don't know, but whatever. It was the basic stuff you would expect out of a match like this, especially one involving the Dudleys / Team 3D at this point. It does have that historical significance to it with Team 3D getting those belts and, again, adding to their legacy, and kind of putting them up on the same pedestal as, say, the Road Warriors, and as just being those guys that just won a bunch of belts from different companies all over the world. So, yeah, I was okay with it. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it either, but it was fine. Next up, Shinsuke Nakamura and Hiroki Goto versus Mitsuharu Misawa and Takashi Sugiura. If I'm not mistaken, Misawa would actually pass away later this year. I know it was either this year or next. So this is, one of his last big matches here in the Dome. And, pretty solid, like, main event style tag matches involving the big stars and everything. And Nakamura was continuing to grow and develop. And Goto, it's really funny to watch him because, last year, the story with him was that he just couldn't win the big one. And it's like, now that I'm going back and watching all these old Wrestle Kingdoms, I'm kind of seeing that where in other shows he'll be in like a big title match and ultimately lose. More on that in Wrestle Kingdom 4. But Goto was just always in the mix and always working well with these guys and just never quite got that next bump into the upper echelon like a Nakamura, like a Naito, like a Okada, etc., etc. But yeah, overall an enjoyable tag match and a fun match overall. But that leads us into the main event. Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Kenji Muto, the Great Muta, as he is more commonly known as, for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship in the main event. I was a little worried about this match when I first heard that, I first saw that this was going to be the main event of Wrestle Kingdom 3. I was kind of like, oh, because at Wrestle Kingdom 2, I kind of thought, like, yeah, Muta's kind of showing his age a little bit. And when I heard that these two were the main event of this one, I was kind of thinking, it's like, oh, Muta's going to show his age. And it's probably not going to be as good as I want it to be. But actually turned out to be very good. Actually, I'd say out of the first 3 Wrestle Kingdoms, probably my favorite main event of the first 3. Again, I keep making this comparison to matches similar to it, but it's kind of a better version of the Roman Reigns Undertaker match, where it's like, yes, you're having the old guy put over the young guy to kind of give him that stamp of approval, not pass the torch necessarily, because the torch is already in Roman Reigns' hands. It's already in Tanahashi's hands at this point, but like give him a stamp of approval to kind of put him over the top. Whereas, the WrestleMania match between Taker and Roman Reigns just almost completely failed at that in every single way. This one achieved that, and I thought Tanahashi and Muto had a really good match with each other, and a very, very good main event. I mean, they were dragon screwing each other left and right and hitting Shining Wizards all over the place, and the match went really long too. I think like half an hour. So it's like, man, at that age, Kenji Muto could still go. It was like, man, wow, that was really impressive. So overall, very strong main event, very good ending to the show. Very enjoyable show overall. And now let's get into Wrestle Kingdom 4. I have the card pulled up right here. We opened up, like Wrestle Kingdom 3, we opened up with a 6-man tag. This one being Jushin Thunder Liger, Koji Kanemoto, and making his debut in the Dome at the January 4th Dome show on the main card. I believe he was in a dark match the year before, but Kazuchika Okada in the opening match of a Wrestle Kingdom. Man, would that get flipped over the next few years. But yeah, this is his first official on the main card Dome match. And nice to see him. Nice to see him. All young Okada. I mean, he's still young technically, but man, he gets to team with Jushin Thunder Liger too. That's interesting. But that 3-man team took on Hirasawa, Super Strong Machine, and Wataru Inoue. Good solid opener. Nothing else to really say other than that. Liger's team lost. But yeah, which looks weird on paper. It's like, wait, you got Liger and Okada on one team and they're the losing team? That's crazy. But again, keep in mind, this is 2009, not 2015. So, yeah, good solid opener, action-packed, that type of stuff. But it's really funny to look back on now. It's like, man, just see, who'd have thought that Okada, I mean, this must have been, close to when he went to TNA, I think. Like, yeah, that wonderful run he had where they made him a Green Hornet Kato knockoff, and he was Samoa Joe's sidekick for some reason. Sure. Alright, next up, we had this was our first championship match of the evening, IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag titles up for grabs. The team of Apollo 55 versus Averno and Ultimo Guerrero, one of those interpromotional matches. Apollo 55 is made up of Prince Devitt and Taguchi. So this is Prince Devitt's first championship match at a Tokyo Dome event. And, yeah, pretty good, solid match. Devitt, again, would go on, in this match he shows some of the greatness that he had, or has, and would carry on those skills into WWE and be Finn Balor, the demon that he is now. But overall, yeah, really good, entertaining match. I remember Averno and Ultimo Guerrero, the first time I saw them was in one of the TNA World X Cups, which I think was the year before this particular Dome show. So, nice to see some familiar faces in there. And, but yeah, Apollo 55 successfully retained the titles, which makes perfect sense when you look at, like, come on, it's Prince Devitt. He's not going to lose the tag titles to the interpromotional guys. Come on, that'd be crazy. But anyway, next match, another tag team championship match for the IWGP Tag Team Championships. We had Team 3D defending the belts against Bad Intentions, who was Giant Bernard, Albert, and Carl Anderson, and No Limit, who I talked about in the previous review, in a triple threat hardcore match. And No Limit actually got the win, so that's a little bit in the feather of the cap of Tetsuya Naito and Yujiro, as they actually picked up a win over Team 3D, the Dudley Boys, to win a tag team championship. And I've already talked about what Naito would ultimately become, but yeah, I enjoyed this match. I thought this was really fun. Again, it's three teams working together, so you kind of expect it to be a free-for-all, and it kind of was, but it was entertaining and enjoyable, and I was legitimately surprised, because I didn't remember who won this match. I remember Team 3D carrying the IWGP titles, but other than that, I didn't remember who they lost it to or when, or if TNA ever even mentioned who beat them for the belt. So it was cool to see No Limit actually get the straps here. So yeah, nice surprise. In another fun match, we got Masato Tanaka and Tajiri taking on Akebono and Yuji Nagata, representing 0-1. This was fun. Akebono, for those of you who don't remember, he was that sumo wrestling champion that would face the Big Show at WrestleMania 21, and in one of the more notorious matches in WrestleMania's history. And he's paired up with Yuji Nagata as they take on Tanaka and Tajiri. And yeah, it helps to see so many familiar faces in this thing. Tanaka, Tajiri, Nagata, and even Akebono, who I kind of just expected him to be a lumbering big guy that didn't really do anything, which is kind of what he was, but because it was a tag match, they were able to use him somewhat effectively, and Tajiri was used very effectively, hitting all of his key spots. Tajiri would even get the pin in this match. And, broke out the mist and all that other stuff. It's like, man, I would have liked for Tajiri and Kenji Muto to be on the same team, just to have them break out the mist together. That would have been interesting. But, yeah, Tanaka and Nagata, as usual, worked great, and it just overall made for a fun tag match with fun talents involved. Next up is an 8-man tag. Terry Funk with Riki Chosu, Masahiro Chono, and Manabu Nakanishi taking on Abdullah the Butcher and 3 members of Chaos, Izuka, Ishii, and Yano. This match would end when Abdullah the Butcher had a miscommunication with one of his partners and would ultimately turn on Chaos and set up the win for Terry Funk's team. This was interesting. I'm just gonna say it right now, Abdullah the Butcher looked terrible. Like, absolutely horrible in this. Like, he could barely move well enough to get in and out of the ring when it was time to hit his spots. Like, whenever he would hit, like, one of his spots, it never looked good. He just looked way too old to be in there. And Funk is no young guy, but he looked like Ric Flair in his prime compared to Abdullah the Butcher in this match. But fortunately, it's an 8-man tag, so it wasn't all reliant on Butcher, and you got some fun stuff out of it. Maybe a little too much focus on Funk and Abdullah was kind of maybe the problem with this match, because it's like, look, they're the old guys. They should be the ones on the apron. Let the, I thought I was going to sneeze. I was not. Okay. But yeah, let those guys kind of control the match and let the old guys hit their, like, nostalgia spots. There you go, delayed. But overall, I mean, it was not, except for Abdullah being terrible, it wasn't that bad, but yeah, I can't believe they gave Abdullah as much as they did. All things considered, it's like, come on, man. Have you seen him? He looks terrible. But anyway, it was what it was. Next up, we've got Togi Makabe versus Muhammad Yoni. I think that's how it's pronounced. And another one of their, I believe this was New Japan and 0-1 interpromotional matches. Good power match, very short. It didn't go very long. But it was two guys that were just, slamming and knocking the crap out of each other for a short amount of time. So it was one of those quick little burst matches that was like, yeah, that was fun. Cool. Not great, but perfectly enjoyable for what it was. And Togi Makabe really showed some of the skills here that would ultimately help him break out a little bit and become a bigger name, as opposed to just being Yano's tag team partner. And overall, yeah, I enjoyed this. Togi Makabe got the win with the King Kong knee drop, and yeah, just good stuff. He even used the spider German suplex out of the corner too, which was nice. Next up for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, we had Marufuji taking on Tiger Mask, and Marufuji would actually get the win here. Good match. Again, really good stuff. Marufuji, typically high-level competitor, high-level performer, and you expect good stuff out of him. Tiger Mask, again, I mean, it's Tiger Mask. You expect something good out of him. And thought they had just a pretty good match with each other. Very enjoyable. And the type of thing you would expect out of a Junior Heavyweight Championship match, especially at a big show like this one. Next up was a singles match, interpromotional as well. Hiroshi Tanahashi taking on Go Shiozaki. This was another really good match for Tanahashi. I mean, this guy, with matches like this, again, it's the more interpromotional nature of it. Tanahashi gets to show that he can work with pretty much anybody and get like a really good match out of them. I mean, the year before, he had that really good match with Muto, even though Muto was older and past his prime. And here he's going in with a more unfamiliar talent from another company, and he's still able to have a great match with him. Tanahashi got the win, of course, with the high fly flow. But yeah, just is, I've heard people say that they got sick of Tanahashi and he was on top for too long or whatever, but when you're having matches as good as this one on such a consistent basis, it's hard to argue against it. It's like, yeah, but he's really good. Like, there's a reason why he's still on top. He's really friggin' good. Even in 2017, like, his matches with Naito were incredible. So, the dude can go, and the dude has really been a big workhorse for New Japan for a long time, and, he deserves all the praise that he gets. And I kind of alluded to this earlier, but Hiroki Goto found himself in a championship match for the GHC Heavyweight Championship, which I believe are the Pro Wrestling Noah titles, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So that was the big Pro Wrestling Noah versus New Japan championship match. It was Hiroki Goto challenging the champion Segura. Really good, hard-hitting match. I would say match of the night, actually. This was kind of a sleeper hit for me. I was expecting to think the Tanahashi match was the best, but this one was really good, and just a really good, hard-hitting match, and the type of thing that really seemed to complement Goto's abilities and just have a really good match. But, as I alluded to earlier, Goto was just always that guy that was in the mix, but just couldn't win the big one, and he was on the losing end here as well, so... but I guess that partly, and I could talk about the main event in relation to this too. When you have like the heavyweight title on the line in like a different company's show, it's hard to believe that the title's going to change hands. Like if I had been watching this show back back in 2010, I wouldn't have expected Hiroki Goto to win this match. It's like there's no way the Pro Wrestling Noah is going to let the New Japan guy win their belt on their show. It's just not going to happen. Not impossible, but highly unlikely, I would say. And that kind of leads me into the main event as well. Shinsuke Nakamura defending the IWGP Heavyweight Championship against Yoshihiro Takayama, which I did some research on this, and it turns out that Nakamura and Takayama have a history together. Nakamura had defeated him for a championship 6 years prior to this, and Nakamura retired that championship. And so this was Takayama's way of like, okay, I'm going to get back at Nakamura by winning the IWGP title and retiring that championship, which is like, ooh, that would have been huge if that had happened. But again, highly unlikely that it would take place. Overall, I thought the main event was fine. It was nowhere near as good as the Tanahashi Go Shiozaki match or the Goto match. It was nowhere near as good as those, and kind of came off kind of flat. Makes me kind of wish they had just closed out with the Goto GHC title match, but you know, this is a New Japan show, so they're going to close out with their main belt. Yeah, I thought the match was okay. It was nowhere near one of the better Wrestle Kingdom main events, though, and just kind of a match that was there, and it was like an obligatory main event that took place, and nowhere near as good as some of the matches that came before it. But with all of that said, I thought both Wrestle Kingdoms 3 and 4 were very enjoyable shows. Overall, pretty good. Overall, I think we're far removed from Wrestle Kingdom 1, which I didn't like. And since then, it's like, all right, 2 was really good, 3 was really good, 4 was really good, and eventually I would come, 9, 10, 11 are like some of the best shows in the last decade. So, yeah, I think we're getting, like, they seem to be getting better as we move along here. So I think once I move into 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, I expect some really stellar shows out of that once they would kind of get the Wrestle Kingdom, the quality up and just continue to just get better and better from there. But I've got a long way to go before I get into those events. But until then, got a few videos lined up, a couple surprises as well. Got my work cut out for me in the month of October. But before I get into all of that, wish you all, hopefully you all enjoyed your weekend. Hopefully you all enjoy all next week. And like I said, I've got some more videos lined up for you, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But until then, y'all have a good one.